What's up, y'all? My name is Ian Edwards, and welcome to the Soccer Comic Rant. I got the homie Lee Hudson with me, stand-up comic in England, Southampton fan, and we're all experiencing. Not you know what? Football-wise, this year couldn't be over faster. How you feeling, Lee?
Oh, I'm numb. I'm just, I mean, we've had two games since we last podded. Yeah, it gets crazy this time of year. Those games come thick and fast, and yeah, we've had two under the new manager, and there's some green shoots there, but still, we are where we are. um,
Are
it
you?
wasn't even enough to like make the atmosphere a bit better around those games. Normally around Christmas, like the games are a little bit more jovial.
Mhm.
But yeah, not when your team's this bad. So it's yeah,
I thought you
rough.
were losing better. Are you losing better at least?
Yeah. We can get into it, but yeah, in a bit. But yeah, we're not as terrible.
Right. That's where it starts. You know what I mean? It's good to know that you've leveled out, you've hit rock bottom, and now you, like you said, green shoots can start, peeking out the ground, and the sky's the limit. Let's just see how much of that limit y'all want to grab. Uh, uh, we'll 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 tackle this episode from a less painful perspective. Uh, you know, we'll start from the top of the table, go down, just see where everybody's at. It's the end of the year, so round up, and
It'll
to
just get really
most,
sad as we go down.
it's definitely going to get sadder the more we go down the table. But yeah, but there'll actually be some people I'll be happy for. So Liverpool ain't one of them, but they're not a surprise to me. They're first. They got 45 points. Like, they're just sailing. And uh, in the Premier League, they've won 14, drawn 3, lost 1. And that one that they've lost is to the second place team in the table. But they just like stripped West Ham of any dignity, like just put them over their knee and hided them, caned them like they're doing criminals in Singapore in front of a public crowd. Just definitely pantsed them and embarrassed them in that game. And you know what's funny about that game? It happened a few days ago, but from what I remember, is West Ham came out swinging and they did put up a fight. And right Liverpool went before Liverpool went 2 up, Kudus from West Ham had just hit the post just to let Liverpool know that we are still in this game and we're going to be a handful and this game is going to be a challenge. And Liverpool, right after that post, was like, no, you're not. This is going to be light work. And they just went 3 up and then 4 up like immediately after. And just it didn't even look like a struggle. It was like a big brother like pinning his little sister to the floor and be like, just give up. And that's Liverpool are doing some hard shit really easy right now. And I thought West Ham had turned a corner. They've gotten like a few victories in a row or just not lost in the last 4 games. And Liverpool was like, you're not on our level at all, and trounced them. And so that's why Liverpool are where they at, man. They're playing hard but easy. I don't know if it's because we're so used to see the franticness of a Klopp squad. Like, all their wins seem more earned than these easy ass, take it easy, like soul music wins that they're having right now. But they're singing all on the same tune and they're winning, and they and you can't say a Klopp team never did this. Like, there's Klopp teams that almost scored 100 points, you know, or maybe they did. I can't remember. I remember they were the first team to almost score 100 points when they won the league.
Mm.
But I think towards the end, after they won, they kind of like, we don't need the 100. But what do you think of Liverpool?
Yeah, I mean, just in a crazy season where so many teams have struggled for consistency, they've been the ones who've just maintained it. And I mean, at this stage, don't give those new contracts out. Don't give Salah a new contract. Don't give Trent a new contract. Keep everything exactly how it is. Figure it out at the end of the season. Just have a chat and go, right, you don't agree to sign for anyone, but we won't give you a new contract. We'll just leave everything exactly how it is. We'll speak at the end of the season. Because like so many times you've seen it where players are on like a hot streak and then they sign a new contract and then all of a sudden their game changes. I don't know.
Right.
If they did that with Salah, if it would happen. But yeah, I mean, the man's a machine right now. Even when he's not trying to be skillful, he ends up being skillful. Like that third goal, where he just sort of come inside and it's ended up like coming off his heel and then going through someone's legs. Yeah, and just so many players have stepped up for them as well. Like other players like Gakpo.
Yeah.
Slot's using him better because I think Klopp was using him as like a centre forward, whereas Slot's playing him off the left wing, which is where he plays for the Netherlands national team. And he always looked better for Netherlands than he did for Liverpool. But now he's starting to like deliver some of those games in a Liverpool shirt, which is, it's great for them. And just, the midfield's firing, just solid. Like McAllister is a player, Soboslai is a player. Gravenberch, it's all working for them. And they're just putting teams away, like such light work. They made that West Ham game. Like I say, I know West Ham did give them a little scare, but for the most part, that was just rampant Liverpool. Areola did make some good saves as well at the same time. So they put them through it, and just so dominant. But I mean, I can't see any other result than them winning the league right now.
I mean, it's definitely possible, So you don't feel Nottingham Forest, who's in second, can catch them, chase them down.
I mean, even though they do have
like
future Ballon d'Or winner Chris Wood in their ranks, I don't think they'll quite be enough.
You sure, man? I don't know, man. Yeah, but that's who's second. And what's funny when you look at Nottingham Forest on the website of the Premier League, they always show the results when you look at the table of everybody's last 5 games, and it's all W's, it's all green lights. And for Nottingham Forest to be second, last 5 games, all wins, and their win over the holiday recently was against Everton, who has been giving teams a go. You know what I mean? Like Everton hasn't lost a game in 4 games, and they lose to Forest. And the games before that was Wolves, and Arsenal couldn't beat them at home, and then Chelsea couldn't beat them at home, and then Man City couldn't beat them at home. So Everton was supposed to be like had lost. If you say Everton has to play Arsenal, Chelsea was on the road. Chelsea came to them. Sorry about that. And Man City, just period. Wherever they were going to play them, you were not going to think that Everton would get anything out of those games. And then the game that they don't get anything out of was the Forest game. So for Forest, it's the new Nuno. He's been fired from the Premier League twice. He's been disrespected, and he's come back at the right time with the perfect team that has everything that he needs. Like Bruno Amorim from United stepped into a situation where everything is not to his liking, but Nuno definitely came to Nottingham Forest at the right time. Everything fits him. He's using everything perfectly. And even in the best case scenario, you would not think that this guy would be second with 37 points halfway through. Happy New Year to you. And Happy New Year to everybody out there listening. What do you think about this impressive stance of Nottingham Forest?
I mean, they've just figured out, like you say, they've got all the parts, and he's making the most of them as well, because a lot of those parts are, they're players who were sort of cast away by other clubs. And he's sort of shined them up. And, you know, there's so many players there who would have gone up in value, you know, based on what they've done. And yeah, I mean, some of the players kind of went like off the boil a little bit for them. Like Nico Williams kind of had been off the radar for a bit, and then he's come back into the team, and he's playing great for them right now.
Yeah, he's right behind his old Liverpool team. He's like, yo, Liverpool, you got rid of me? I'm right here knocking on your door.
Yeah, man. And Ola Aina as well has been fantastic. Milenkovic, who they signed from Fiorentina at the back, he's been a monster. Murillo was injured this week, but he's been great for them this season. The goalkeeper as well, Sells, like, you know, didn't really bat an eyelid when they signed him. I was like, okay, he's all right. He's been in the French league, I think. Right, he's been great. Gibbs White plays like with so much energy for them in that midfield. And yeah, like Ilanga, Hudson Odoi, Sosa, who's played recently as well. Just, yeah, man, they like all the parts are playing their part.
Yeah.
You know, Elliot Anderson, who they got from Newcastle, was a baller as well in the middle of the pitch. So yeah, just really impressive from them, and to go from, you know, I mean, when Steve Cooper got them promoted, they weren't expected to be promoted, and then they came up and they signed like 50 players, and that scattergun approach clearly worked because they were able to pick out the ones who were actually, you know, capable of the Premier League. And yeah, I mean, Nuno came in, kept them up, and then hell of a job this season.
It's almost like everybody laughed at Chelsea's scattergun approach of just buying everybody. And you just reminded me that Nottingham Forest kind of did the same thing. They just like, we'll take that person. But both those teams are in the top 4. Like with this crazy, like, let's buy people. All right, like, and both teams were in danger of, like, Chelsea was in danger of like FFP violations, but they sold a hotel. Nottingham Forest, they actually lost points last season, right?
Yeah,
they get points,
they deduction.
but but that point deduction last season, you take it and we'll survive. And now we got the players, and now we'll use them. And imagine if they didn't have to sell the guy they sold to Spurs, and they could have kept him because they got fined for keeping him too long past the sale date anyway. And or maybe they would have got fined more for if they did keep him. But they're second, and those players you mentioned, like, all I can think of is like they all got wheels. You know, they can just run for days. Gibbs White and everybody, and Hudson Odoi and Ilanga and just everybody else that I ain't mentioning, they just run their asses off. And that's what you need in this Premier League era if you ain't got like the primo, crisper players, that you just need legs. And they have everything United don't got, you know, effort and desire and, you know, determination. And they're second in the table. So hats off and Happy New Year to Nottingham Forest. And especially if you're in front of Arsenal, you know, like if you're going to be in front of Arsenal, who's third, you know, a point behind Forest. And let's just remember, Liverpool has a game in hand. Arsenal's playing tomorrow. So they're playing.
No, they're playing New Year's Day.
New Year's Day, okay.
Yeah, they're away at Brentford. So that'll be a tough game.
Yeah, tough game. But I think they should be, but they still have no Saka. So let's see how Arsenal's going to do with no Saka. Like the Odegaard thing really affected them, the missing Odegaard. So let's see how they're going to deal with this. I don't know how if Sterling's going to still be injured and if he can help them. And even when he was playing, he wasn't on full form, and he's not playing. He's not used to playing on the right. He's been playing the left most of his like successful professional life. So when he was at Chelsea, he wasn't the greatest in his best position, and now Arsenal needs him on the right. So he has to be asking a guy that wasn't doing the best in his best position to play his best in a position he's not like familiar with as much as he used to be, or if ever. So yeah, what do you think?
They've shifted. I think they're looking to shift Martinelli to the right though. Right. So he can play there as well. That means they can use Trossard or Sterling, whoever on the left.
The first time they shifted him was like last week when they or midweek when they had no Sterling. But yeah, let's see if they continue that. Arsenal did get a goal in that game. Was it from Havertz? Yeah, from Havertz against Ipswich.
Yeah, the 1-0, yeah.
Yeah, the 1-0.
And Gabriel Jesus should have scored off that corner where it was almost harder to miss. He was like 1 yard out and somehow put it wide.
Yeah, we'll see Arsenal if they struggle. I expect them to struggle without Saka. Even if it's not this game coming up against Brentford, like Saka has a value, and if you subtract that value, you're going to see the sum of that subtraction at the end of the few games. And he's going to be out longer than Arteta said he was going to be. So we'll see. What do you think of Arsenal being third on 36 points?
Yeah, I think they got that game in hand on Forest, so I'd fully expect them to jump back above and be in second place. And I do think they are the closest team to Liverpool this season. So yeah, but I think the Saka injury will really hamper their chances of them getting closer to Liverpool, because yeah, I mean, such a major player, such a large amount of their goals and assists sort of stem from him. You saw how much it hurt them when they had Odegaard out earlier this season. So I think they're the two key players for them, really. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but for the most part, they've been solid enough. I think fan expectations is one thing, though, because some of them are obviously expecting them to be, pushing even harder because of the bar has been raised for them sort of the last few seasons with Arteta. But with injuries to key players, this is probably, I think, their realistic position. And I remember a time a few years ago when Arsenal were like outside the Champions League spots and not even anywhere near the title race. So, to be sort of solidly in it the last couple of seasons, like, yeah, it's like some Arsenal fans, I think, need to chill out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think they'll probably finish closest to Liverpool.
Joseph Duda sent me something. It's a meme. That's the meme. That's the sound of the meme. But it's like, if you look at all the top four right now, there's only one team in the top four who hasn't won the Champions League, and it isn't Nottingham Forest. So that's a shots fired at Arsenal.
But Arsenal have won the Premier League a shitload of times, so it doesn't matter how many times you won the Champions League when you're up at fighting for the Premier League.
Yeah, so, but fans, they're just like,
oh yeah, it was still funny.
yeah, they're still trying to get at people. Yeah, we'll see Arteta, because I just like the idea of a team that's not expected to be in front of Arsenal to be in front of Arsenal. Like, if you're like, Arsenal fans think you're supposed to be challenging for the title, you should at least be second. And you have Nottingham Forest, a team that was deducted points last year, almost got relegated in front of you. This is insult to injury. This is disrespect. And any dropping of points on New Year's Day will make Arteta's job threatened, and Arsenal Fan TV fans feel away. So let's go Brentford. Chelsea's fourth, and they've just lost 2 in a row. But if any team can lose 2 in a row and people not trip, it's Chelsea. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't advise them to lose 3 in a row or drop points after that. You know what I mean? But I feel like they've done so well and it's superseded expectations that their fans would be like, all right, that's fine. We lost 2. We've won so much. And, they're a 10-5-4 team, and their goal difference is 15 plus goals. And United fans would be happy if they were in fourth and they just lost their last 2 games. Like, there aren't many teams that wouldn't take this. you know, and especially with the off-field disarray and the new coach that you didn't expect to do this well, and him springboarding using a combination of what Pochettino used with the knowledge that he has, and they're going at it. And you know, there's players that the fans could like carry the beat, you know, that are like entertaining the fans. Like they have Cole Palmer, and they're ahead of Man City, and they're 1 point behind Arsenal, 2 points behind Nottingham Forest. They're a decent distance behind Liverpool, because Chelsea has 35 points. So they're 10 points behind Liverpool. That's how much damage Liverpool is doing. They're 10 points. Chelsea is fourth. They're 10 points behind Liverpool, and Liverpool has a game in hand.
Yeah, the Everton game that got cancelled because of the weather.
So, damn, even more recognition to Liverpool as we talk about Chelsea being in fourth. But yeah, like if I was a Chelsea fan, I wouldn't be mad at this. I know they lost today to Ipswich. Shout out to Ipswich for like digging in at home, and they can give you a tough one. Like Ipswich is not letting their results get to them. They fight hard every game. They know what it is. They're not going to fall into the trap of like we are who our results are, you know. But I should save this for when we get to Ipswich. But again, I like where Chelsea's at for Chelsea. Good for them. You have any Chelsea thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued. Any Chelsea fans who listen or watch, like, hit us up in the comments. Where is the lowest you think is acceptable for this Chelsea team to finish this season? Because I'm curious. Like right now, looking at the table, I think like sixth for me would be the lowest I would accept this Chelsea team finishing, and that's only because like Man City are capable of putting a run together, and they're just below, and this Newcastle team. Like Newcastle seem to have, we'll get onto them in a second, but they seem to have figured things out a bit more. So, you know, Chelsea being where they are isn't necessarily a given. I mean, Chelsea could put a run back together and end up, you know, keeping pace with Arsenal and jumping above Forest. That could happen as well. So, I mean, I think for Chelsea fans, like the goal has to be Champions League football because the club hasn't had it for a couple of seasons at least. So, you know, can they get back to there? But yeah, what's the lowest Chelsea fans would accept without being angry about things or disappointed in things? Because I mean, obviously, you know, with some of the disarray there's been there off the pitch and everything, it's affected on the pitch, and it meant that they've had a couple of sort of mid-table finishes. I know they started to creep up towards the higher positions last year with Poch and that little run he put together in the back half of the season. So yeah, Maresca's done well to come in and to sort of keep things going and to get his style of play across, and obviously helped having some really good players in there, especially when like today they rotated things around. They were able to bring like Felix in and Kunku and people. It's like that's a pretty quality team to be able to have on a rotation. But yeah, I mean the new signings are starting to like look the money they paid for them as well, like Enzo and Caicedo. Like Caicedo's been a monster this season. So yeah, they're finally starting to justify some of those price tags. So I think this Chelsea team are probably like going to get stronger as well as the season goes on. I'm expecting a strong finish from them. So I think top four is definitely like going to happen for them. At whose expense, I don't know. But at least top six.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me plug out this heater. Hold on.
I'll keep you company while Ian's. Oh no, he's back. Damn. That was quick.
Yeah. I was like, man, this heat's just gonna put me to sleep. I had it on all day. I was like, I don't need to have this on during the podcast. It's better if I'm chilly during the podcast. Your thoughts about Chelsea were like jogging some. I feel like Chelsea is good across the back, but they're starting back four when they have them, they're good. But like Diassi today made a mistake, which is such a Diassi mistake. which lets me know like Chelsea is going to get stronger as the season goes on because some of their players that they don't start should start upgrading there and getting better the more chances that they get to come in the game. I don't think it worked for them today. Like I was laughing at João Felix celebrating his goal, and then the ref just took it away because he was offside. And it's like João Felix is an example of the Portuguese league running game on all of the top 5 leagues in Europe. Like there have been some successful Portuguese players, and the league uses those successful players to scam the rest of Europe into saying, hey, this is the new guy. You want this one? Because he's just like the one 5 guys ago that worked out. And so I don't like this, like Giles played everywhere, but, and he should be the type of player that should come to Chelsea and just be a starter. But, Cole Palmer is. And then today they tried João in on the left. I don't think he's a left guy. I think he's a 9 or a 10, but they wanted to rotate, which is fine. But I don't even know why you're rotating Sancho, because Sancho's had a decent amount of rest leading into this game from other games. So it's like, try to get the win. Like Ipswich is not playing games. You can't just come in here and say, it's Ipswich, just rotate on them based on where they're at the table. Because now that was a bad math calculation. Like you needed your main guys in. I understand you're starting in Nkunku because he is actually Chelsea's leading scorer, but that's from like cup games and from scoring in that European competition that name I can't even remember right now. The
Conference League.
The Conference League, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it just shows how much harder it is for your Conference League scorer to score in the Premier League. But I believe in Nkunku. He needs more Premier League exposure, and I feel like he could really give Jackson a run for his money. And
I still think Nkunku's not a 9 either. I think he's an advanced 10, but he can't play there because of Palmer.
Right. Yeah, he's good with the ball. He's really nice. I rate him for sure. There's lots of players not getting on because of Palmer. Lavia can't get in because they're playing Enzo and Caicedo. But you could move Enzo to a 10, and if Palmer wasn't there, and get Lavia in next to Caicedo, and then I even think there's another player, Reno. Is it Reno? He's Portuguese too, and he plays like right or left back. But I've seen him play.
Ramon Vega.
Yeah, I've seen him play center midfield, but he can't get in there because it's going to be Palmer, Caicedo, and Enzo, and then they have to they rotated today, but they kept that diamond of those 3 guys, and through, like I said, Felix, who's a 9 or a 10, they threw him wide. So but we'll see how Enzo gets more of his players up to the level of his starting 11, because once he does, then Chelsea will really have a shot at staying in the top 4. Newcastle. They came, they saw, and they battered, at least in the first half, versus United today. And they scored all their goals in the first half. And they've won 4 out of their last 5, and we're one of those 4. And they're on a good streak right now. They beat Leicester 4-0. They beat Ipswich 4-0, which I just gave Ipswich props, but Newcastle went up to their home and stripped them of their clothes in front of their crowds. That's an impressive 4-0. And they went to Villa and beat Villa, and then they came to us and beat us too. So I guess we can consider ourselves lucky. Did Man United actually not do that bad in comparison to what Let's say Newcastle beat at home, but Ipswich was on the road. No, that Aston Villa game was at Newcastle, all right, but still, I mean, I'm depressed or just stunned, numb about like United's performance in the second half, in the first half. But just Eddie Howe has got his crew together. They're on a good streak. He's another guy who I always felt was a good coach, but it's been a shaky, like middle of the first part of the season, but towards the end of the first part, the last part of this first half of the season, he's kind of gotten it together, and they're in the 5th place right now with 32 points, and they're starting to become consistent, and they've gotten over their injuries, and I always considered them a threat. I know Champions League was a lot or a little bit too much for them last season, and they got some injuries, and it dropped them down the table. But now they're primed to go hard in the second half of the season coming up in January. And their next game is against Spurs at Spurs. So let me know what you feel about Newcastle and what their chances you think is against Spurs.
Yeah, I mean, they were a bit inconsistent at the start of the season, Newcastle. They've kind of figured it out in these last few weeks. And I think one of the big things for them has been moving Tonali into CDM and sort of pushing Bruno Guimaraes a little bit higher and Joelinton as well. Like that combination seems to be really working for them. And just, I mean, the front players are all contributing. They're all causing problems as well. I mean, they're just menaces. They got pace. They got power. They press. They're in your faces. They look to move the ball quickly. And I think like Isak's obviously the one getting all the the plaudits and a lot of the goals, and Gordon's always causing problems. I think Jacob Murphy's really underrated. Like Murphy's causing issues for teams. And yeah, like Lewis Hall is finally looking like the player they thought they got from Chelsea. Like he's a young player, so he's took a little bit of time to really flourish, but he's looking good. And yeah, I mean, there's a nice balance to that team. I think teams are going to sniff around Isak. Newcastle trying to put like £150 million price tag on him so that they're trying to keep people away. But yeah, I mean, if they can keep this form up, then I think they'll cause some problems for the rest of the season, because they're trying to muscle their way. And they had that little taste, that little morsel of Champions League football last season, and they're like, we like that. We want to have some more of that. And they weren't consistent enough juggling Champions League and Premier League last season, so obviously they slipped down a bit. But yeah, they're looking like they could make a case for getting back up there. I think they'll fall a little bit short because of the quality of the teams that are also up there fighting for it as well. So yeah, but they'll be there or thereabouts. I think they'll be close to the Champions League places. Because yeah, like I said, nice balance to that team. Tonali's balling, Joelinton's a menace. Guimaraes is just a great player to watch. I think he'll be one as well that the likes of Man City could be trying to go for. Because he's what they need. So yeah, the longer they can hold them guys off. But just a solid, well coached team with good energy right now.
Joelinton's Brazilian, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does he have to do to get in the Brazil squad? It's so crazy, like every international break. I mean, I guess Eddie Howe loves it because then he gets to rest and use him for Newcastle. But I never see him in the Brazil squad. And if he is, he's never on the pitch. But yeah, like you said, he's all energy. Bruno Guimaraes, all energy. All their players that come on. Gordon is all energy. Like they bought the right people, the people that's going to come on the pitch and put in a shift and like hustle the ball. They're good without the ball. They're good with it. And this ain't a Newcastle team you'd want to face. And today, I just figured we wouldn't lose this many games in a row. So I figured we'd just beat Newcastle. But the fact that they did beat us today is actually no surprise. And they beat us in a way that I thought they would beat us, just as us out hustle us, especially with the midfield we put out against theirs. It was like, how is this midfield going to withstand this intensity of this Newcastle midfield, which we didn't, at least in the first half. So yeah, that's what they did what they were all about today. And they got that win. And I feel like they could beat Tottenham. They beat Tottenham this year. But also Tottenham outplayed them for that game, but Newcastle played it smart. Newcastle is not afraid to play without the ball against teams they think want the ball, and then to strike when they think it's appropriate. So that's how I like Eddie, how like is not afraid to like he can variate his style when he sees a team that wants the ball and say, all right, you can have it, and then we'll just counter you. So I feel like, will they beat Spurs? Spurs need a win. But will they win? I'll keep my money on Newcastle for the fun of it.
Can't be back in Spurs right now.
So what?
Can't be back in Spurs right now.
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's a good idea not to back them. Man City is 6th. I have 31 points. They're 1 point behind Newcastle. But good news for Man City fans, they ended the year with a win. And that is so funny that like our Man City win is more surprising at this point in their season than a Man City loss. And it doesn't matter who they won against, like they'll take it. And they beat Leicester 2-0 at Leicester. And sorry for Rude. Rude gets another L. And but I don't even think this means they're gonna go on a run. I just feel like they just gotta win, and we still don't know when their next win is gonna be. Good news for them, their next game is against West Ham, who got just destroyed by Liverpool, as we mentioned earlier. So it could be like a West Ham that comes to play City with battered wife syndrome. You know what I mean? So they might not be like in the greatest mental health based on what just happened to them. But yeah, like, but City's kind of, even though they won, they're not sure either which version of them is going to show up in their next game. They won't know until they get a streak together, and hopefully West Ham could stop that streak. But it's great to see the downfall of Man City, especially when you didn't expect it this soon. You know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This is a refreshing surprise in the year. It's just that the Man United results prevent me from enjoying this as much as I could. What do you think about City's fall?
Yeah, I mean, definitely didn't see it coming. And I think there's something to be said for the Rodri absence, but one player shouldn't cause the level of meltdown that they've had, and for them to lose the amount of games they've had. Like, it's crazy. It's unheard of for them to go that. And Guardiola's never been put in this position in his career as a coach. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether they try and throw some money at the problem in January, whether they can throw some money at the problem, and try and tweak the things he thinks needs tweaking. Because I think he's even said like his sleep is fucked right now. He is like up every hour trying to figure out he's trying to play those chess games in his head and figure out what needs to be done. And I think the Leicester game was definitely a step in the right direction. Obviously, they got the win, which is the main thing. But I mean, Leicester were putting them under quite a bit of pressure at times in that game, and there was some little pieces of luck. Like there was one when Vardy got put through and Ortega just wiped him out, and then it turns out Vardy was like just offside, because if he's onside and that's a penalty to Leicester, then that game changes. Ortega might have been a red. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a game of fine margins, and yeah, Leicester did put them under some pressure for that game. But yeah, I mean, City, I think another thing for them is just trust some of the younger players more. Like McAtee, when he came in, looked like lively. He was doing things for them, and I think they got to trust some of these guys because they've let too many good players go the last few years. You look at Cole Palmer, you look at Lavia, you look at Morgan Rogers at Villa as well.
Mhm.
These are all guys that they had. Delap,
Sancho.
Sancho as well. Delap terrorized Chelsea tonight. Like these are guys like Delap would have been a great Haaland backup.
Yeah.
Because he plays with energy and he's physical, and he leads the line, and that they had a ready-made player to just rotate to keep Haaland fresh, kind of thing, like they did with Alvarez last season. And I'm sure Delap would have taken that role at City if they said, because they were giving him like little tiny handfuls of minutes, but he'd be like, right, okay, we're going to ease you in more to the rotation now. He would have been more than capable of doing that. And yeah, I think they just need to trust some of their young players a bit more because it's not always the fancy new signing from somewhere else who's the best person for the job. They got some, they spent a lot of money on their academy. Like, use it. Admittedly, selling those players has helped them out in the financial fair play situations, kind of thing, because obviously they're just pure profit, and they put some sell-on clauses in there. Like when we sold Lavia to Chelsea, Man City got a nice chunk of that. But it's like, having someone like him could be
Another player they could have used. Yeah.
what they need in that midfield right now. So yeah, they need to trust someone like McAtee as well. Like, use him, trust him. Like he's shown when he comes in that he can be good. And Rico Lewis is probably the last one who's sort of come in and cemented himself. But they got more of them in there. Use them. It's and I mean we'll get to United further on down in the table. But I mean it's the same message there as well. I think it's But I think City will. Like we've said before, like for them, it's just can they get back in the top four now? That's the thing. Can they get Champions League football? Because if they keep Champions League football, that's a position you can recover nicely from and get back on track from for next season. Like the league's gone for them this season, so it's just can they get Champions League?
So crazy. So they're like 14 points out and a game in hand out. Like, so they have 31. Liverpool has 45, so that's 14 points, and Liverpool has a game in hand. Like they're not even like for sure. Almost 100%, Man City have no chance of winning the league. Like they are the former champions at the halfway point of the season, and I agree they should use their bench and their academy. And one of the players you can't blame them for not using is Oscar Bob. I'm sure with Oscar Bob in there,
I think he's been out injured.
He's injured.
But I think he's back like either now or soon.
Yeah, when he comes back, it'll take a little bit to get back in there, but he's a very effective and a good player on the level of the players that Pep likes to use. But Pep needs to flood these academy players in faster. But I'm sure Man City got money too because their profitability margins have been in their favor over the last few years, despite the charges. So, they cook the books to have the money to buy, to buy new people. So maybe January they'll dip in the market, So we'll see. And you know what? You mentioned some Newcastle players that would be good at Man City, and you could buy somebody out of their position ahead of you in the table. And if you could do that, do that. Bournemouth, they have 30 points. They're 7th. And talk about they're just a pain in the ass team. Their colors are a pain in the ass, red and black stripes, and they're a pain in the ass. And they're a team you don't want to face. They've I wouldn't even call this a dip. They haven't lost in their last 5 games. They've had 3 draws and 2 wins, but that's how annoying they are. I'm kind of pissed at Fulham, and I should do this on the Fulham part of the table, but Fulham is right behind them. Fulham had them. Fulham really had them. They scored a late goal versus Bournemouth. And I was like, hey, Fulham, how about you be more defensive? There's like 10 minutes left in the game. Why don't you just chill a little bit? Because Fulham went up 2-1 and kept on attacking. They had more chances against Bournemouth, and Bournemouth needed the extra goal more than they did. And you just can't like count out Bournemouth. And Fulham was just like really feeling themselves a little too much, and they should have been playing the next half of the next minutes of that game just more defensive. And Bournemouth got them and got the equalizing goal and got a point, and they have 30, and they're seventh, and they're having a good season. And yeah, they beat us, United, and let's see who else they've played. They drew against Crystal Palace. Yeah, they beat us 3-0 at Old Trafford. And I really don't think United played bad in that game. We just didn't put the ball in the net, and they did. They drew with West Ham. So sometimes they can like not beat teams they're supposed to. Like the way Bournemouth is now, they should be able to beat West Ham. And they beat Ipswich at Ipswich. So which is not an easy feat. United tied at Ipswich. So yeah, how do you feel about Bournemouth? The Semenyos, just all their menu of players that are just stepping up and running and playing hard and got intensity and listening to the coach and dying for the shield.
Yeah, I mean, Iraola took a little while to sort of bed his style in when he first joined. Like they were really inconsistent first half of last season, and then they picked up towards the end of the season, and then he's just taken that momentum into this season. And they're just a nicely balanced team with players who know their roles within that system, and they've got players in the final third who can make a difference. Some of the players they've got at the back have just been revelations. Like they got them when people hadn't heard of them before, like Kirkez and Senesi and Hudson and Zabani as well. Like these guys,
saying their names that I still haven't heard of them.
These guys are all just defenders, and they've all been really solid for them. And and then obviously they lost Solanke, and they took a big fee for him, and they got Evan Nilsson for like half the price, I think. And you haven't really noticed the difference. Like he's just come in and started banging in the goals as well. So he's been a really solid buy for them. They haven't really like messed up in the transfer market at all, which is credit to whoever's behind the transfers, whether it's the manager identifying the players or a sporting director, whoever. Like whatever's going on down there is working. So real credit to them, because like I say, the team just seems nicely balanced and everything seems to be working in harmony. So we'll see if that continues into the second half of the season. Because another thing that happens as well sometimes is, especially with teams with like a sort of clear defined style of players, people figure them out. Every team's got a bunch of analysts working, looking at future opposition at this level kind of thing. So it'll be, is it that they're still not catching teams by surprise, but is it that teams haven't properly figured them out yet? And might that come in the second half of the season? Because one thing that's really struck me as well recently, listening to like certain managers, this goes for the whole league. So you listen to like Amorim today, and he gets questioned if he's going to change anything, if he's going to adapt anything. He's
wanted to get into that. Yeah, go ahead.
This is what we do. This is, we don't change. The plan is the plan. And if I change, I admit defeat, kind of thing. And you listen to Ange at Tottenham, and he says the same thing. And you listen to our old manager, Russell Martin, as well, and he was like, "No, we don't have a plan B. Plan A just needs to be better." And, that cost him his job. And it's like there seems to be a real thing at the moment of managers not wanting to be adaptable and not wanting to tweak too much and not wanting to almost admit they've learned things. It's sort of like they've all, I mean, getting to the Premier League as a manager must do something for your ego. And I don't know if that thing is you then thinking, right, my learning is done. My style is set. I will never deviate from this or learn and grow, kind of thing. It's just like, this is my way and I'm not changing it. I've reached the Premier League now. So I'm the man and I can't be questioned, kind of thing. I can't, be open to change, because I think that's a dangerous position to be in. I think it'll work for some people. But yeah, it's an interesting one with the amount of managers that are saying that right now, and it's cost one his job, and it might be costing some others their jobs in the not too distant future. So yeah, I think that's an interesting one.
I was going to save my response to that until we got to United, but let me just not even clap back, but just respond. So I was listening to that interview, and the reporters, I don't know if they did a report or score points or prove that they know more. And I feel it's more to prove their worth, Like the reporters, just like every other fan that calls in, or even us, like we think we know, even though we never played or we never refed, or we never coached on that level. Like there's certain things you can just know by watching it all your life. So there is a certain amount of knowledge that if you pay attention, you will organically know through football. But Amorim's case is completely different than Ange's case because Amorim has a 3-4-3, which can adjust to different shapes. And he told the reporter, hey, I do make those adjustments during the game. Like sometimes we're 4-4-2. So it's not like this guy's attacking his shape and insisting that he might need to change, but he has a shape that is malleable, that does change. He's not, and he says, I will and I do, if you watch, make tweaks. So it's that he doesn't need to change his shape. And he also said, so the guy insisted and said, so you won't change? And he said, to another shape. And it's like, hey, bro, this is what Amorim said. I'm here because the coach before me has the shape with the players that he wanted. He had the shape that you're saying I should probably switch to, and it didn't work. So why would I change back to a shape that got a coach fired before me and not continue with my shape until my players get used to what I'm trying to do and get used to my idea? So Amorim was not being as stubborn as Ange. I think the reporter was trying to score the points, but I think Amorim really sat the reporter down on that response when it's true. Like Erik ten Hag had a different shape and a different philosophy. And it's almost like you're telling the new coach to go back to the philosophy and shape of the coach that got fired because this one ain't working. Now, this one ain't working because it's new and the players have to get to understand it. So I feel like Amorim should continue doing what he's doing. I feel like what this league lacks is patience, but I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be patient. I'm not going to rush this guy. Like I've seen the good points of this system. The only thing I worry about is the losses affecting the players' mentality, which it has. Like some of the losses we had, even losing to Bournemouth, they didn't outplay us. They outscored us. And I want the players to like get low because they lost. And winning does breed confidence. And we need some winning right now to back up this system. But like that reporter, I think he was just trying to score points. He was taking an argument that worked successfully on Ange by another reporter, because I don't think it was the same, and tried to flip it on our coach. But I feel like our coach handled it fine. It's like this 3-4-3 doesn't always stay 3-4-3. It doesn't stay 3-4-3 in possession all the time. It doesn't stay 3-4-3 out of possession and in different scenarios. What we lack today, which I was trying to save, was just overall confidence and zest and determination, period. It had nothing to do with tactics. And that's been the issue that everybody has witnessed from whatever coach United has had, that the players are not given that consistently on a regular basis. So the reporter was actually barking up the wrong tree on that one. But I still feel what you're saying. Yeah. So I'll go to Fulham. They're having a really good year for them. They're eighth. They got 29 points. Like I said today, I said they had it against Bournemouth, but maybe they got a little gung ho. They were feeling themselves. They have this formula where is it Wilson just comes on the pitch and scores the winner from them out of nowhere, And he did that for them, but they did not back down. They thought they could get more. They need to look into their formula. Wilson coming on and scoring, that he only scores one goal, the goal that they need to win. And so it's like trying to get more and be greedy, like kind of hurt them. They even brought on Traore late. Like, let's run the table. Let's try to get way more. And it's like, just grow into Man City. Don't just try to be a Man City all in one. Like relax a little bit. But they have a lot of players that are performing for them, like Pereira. Uh, 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 their forward is back. And we've talked about him before. His name is escaping me right now. And then they have the good backup. Who's their backup guy, the forward that comes in?
I think Muniz is the backup, and
Muniz
Raul
is the backup,
Jimenez is
and Raul
the
Jimenez
starting one. But
is a starting one, yeah.
Yeah, I think they might have had neither of them at the start of the season. I think there might have been both. Oh no, Jimenez was playing at the start.
Yeah,
they sort of flipped between the two because Muniz like finished the last season really strongly.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that Jimenez got the job back from him at the beginning of this season, but then Jimenez has been coming through and scoring. So, and they lost, what was it, Petrovic they lost? Who did they lose?
Mitrovic went to Saudi.
Mitrovic, yeah. So they made some money and got scoring back even just as much or better. They're in a better position in the table, I feel, or more safer, consistent. They're not worried about being relegated, and their team, just like Bournemouth and some other teams on that level, are they're doing their thing and functioning at a high level, at a good part of the table. How do you feel about Fulham?
Shout out to Alex Iwobi as well. I think he's been really good for them this season. He's been underrated. Like he really makes things happen for them. Like contributes in the attacks. Like he's like strong in the press as well. And yeah, they can sort of rotate in their wide areas between either two of him, Traore, or Wilson. And it's worked out okay for them. And they just look like a really solid team. Like they lost Tosin to Chelsea as well, which was a pretty big loss for them because he'd been a really key player for them the season before. But they kept it moving, and they've adapted. Like they signed Anderson back from Palace, who's a really solid centre back, and Bassey's been playing well for them. And yeah, I mean, they've just got some good quality players in there. Like Pereira balls out, another one. He's ex-United.
Tell me about it.
Just technically just solid. And Anthony Robinson at left back as well, left wing back, has just been one of the players of the season, I think, in terms of like going under the radar and playing his role well.
And they lost Reams, who was a solid defender. I don't know how he was playing that good at that age, and they're still doing their thing.
Yeah, and they got like Calvin Bassey. He came in from Ajax, and he's been solid as well. So yeah, just another team where they've recruited well and got a nice balance to the team in attack and defense, and that's why they are where they are on the table.
Yeah. Ninth is Aston Villa. They got 29 points. They were winning today against Brighton Hove, but
slipped to 2-2.
It slipped to 2-2, so they had a 2-1 lead. I feel like the penalty that they got today, I don't know how much of a penalty that was, just because the guy, Rodgers, did get kicked, but I don't know. The position that he got kicked in wasn't a disadvantage, and he actually still made a pass that his teammate turned into a pass to another teammate that ended up being a shot that had to get saved. So I felt like the referee's initial decision to let the game play was right, but I guess if you bring him to the sidelines to see the contact, he has to give the penalty to Aston Villa. But I feel like just because you get kicked in the box, it ain't always a penalty. Like if the person's in a threatening position, yeah, but Rodgers is already kind of going down. He's already reaching for the ball, and he was only going to tap it to a teammate, which he did. So I don't know how much of a penalty that was. But Brighton home, Lamptey came through and equalized that game. And Lamptey, like we talked about Lamptey a little a few episodes ago. He's like, why has this nigga been on the bench? He's been good every time he plays. And a lot of coaches, or maybe not a lot, but there's coaches, even Graham Potter didn't always play him. And then De Zerbi didn't always play him. And then for the first half of the season, the new coach at Brighton Hove wasn't playing him. But I don't know if it's injuries or what, but now he's being played and he's been effective and stood out in all the games that he's played. So I'm glad to see Lamptey get some shine because that dude can ball. I don't know if they're holding his height against him or something, but I think a player like that, I'd love to have a Lamptey at United. Love it. I'd take him any day. But Brighton Hove, 10th, 27 points, and players work hard. They got a new manager. They've bought players this year. You know what? Even though they're 10th, the amount of money that they spent this season, which is different than other seasons, normally other seasons, right before they sell a lot of players, they probably should be higher. So I'm going to be a little critical of them. They probably should be higher up the table, for the money that they spent this season. But maybe they'll grow more into that money that they spent in the second half of the season. But the 10th is good for them, but they probably should be doing a little bit better. How do you feel about Brighton?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of set the expectations quite high with the start of the season they had. And they sort of shot right up to the towards the top end of the table. And yeah, I think it's become so competitive now, like that middle of the table, that like you can jump up and down a few places in the blink of an eye kind of thing. Like I'm just looking at the table now and there's not much in it from sort of, I mean, Tottenham have dropped off. We're going to get to them in a minute, but like there's from Newcastle in 5th down to Brighton in 10th. Like there's 5 points. So that whole chunk of teams, like especially like the Bournemouth, Fulham, Villa, Brighton, it's much of a muchness going on in there, and they're some solid teams. And again, like fan expectations need to be realistic, because I think the difference between if you end up finishing 7th this season or if you finish 12th this season, I don't think there'll be much in that. I think there'll be very few points in that range. So yeah, I mean, especially with the new manager coming in as well, I think for Brighton, just being around that middle of the table and competing a little bit higher if they can is where they should be, really. Like De Zerbi got them into Europe, or well, a combination of Potter and De Zerbi got them into Europe, and then De Zerbi played the European games last season, and it's hard to expect that every season. I did at Southampton when we had Pochettino and Koeman as managers. Like Koeman got us into Europe. We beat Inter Milan at St Mary's. But sometimes you've got to be like, I'd like this to be every year, but given how competitive the Premier League is, you can't always have that every year. It's hard when there's bigger teams throwing bigger money around, and obviously Brighton being where they are in the pecking order of any player that does really shine for them isn't going to last any more than 2, possibly 3 seasons max there, because someone with a bigger budget will come and take them.
It's messed up because as a manager, say you're about to get into Europe and you're like, do I really want to get into Europe? If we get into Europe, it's going to affect my league form. And then it's also going to make people want to buy my players if I get into it. So before I even get into Europe, I might not have some of the players that got me into Europe, And then if I keep some of those players and we play in Europe and they play good, then even now they're in a bigger shop window than just in my league. So it's tough. And then people are going to expect me to have the same performance the next season as the season that I'm in Europe, because I'm in Europe.
Yeah. It's like Brighton qualified for Europe with McAllister and Caicedo as their centre midfield.
Yeah, world-class players, but they sold them, yeah.
So, they are where they are.
You ready to kick Spurs? Spurs are 11th.
Always.
Let's dig the Doc Martens into these dudes. Let's curb stomp Spurs. I mean, I can't barely do anything because they're 11th. I mean, United would love to be 11th right now. We're 14th, but I feel bad for Ange because it's not all his fault. And here's my thing. Like, this is a media clapback again. And they're like, you're not going to alter your style. First of all, when Eric Ten Hag was winning trophies, they used to use Ange as an example of winning trophies ain't good enough. Where's your style of play? And then they beat that drum until Ten Hag is fired. And then now there's no Ten Hag. Who do we go after next? The person whose style of play we were lauding. You know, one reason they said you should get rid of Ten Hag. Like, Miss Man United, they have no style of play. Look at Spurs. Even Spurs has a style of play. And then now, hey, man, we want you to adjust your style of play. Oh, you ain't going to adjust your style of play? Then we're going to fire. Like, what makes the media happy? The guy with the trophies didn't make them happy. And now the guy with the style of play that they were using to beat the guy with the trophies with, now they want this guy gone. And I know he needs better in-game management. Like, you could still play your same style and then in certain parts of the game, back off it because it might benefit you. And you can counter, you can get some points. Like, some of the greatest managers like Mourinho in the Premier League won 3 trophies that way. But I think Andrew's so stubborn now, and he's committed to this argument and this fight with the media that he will eventually lose his job, you know? But again, they antagonize you into this thing where your pride wants you to prove them wrong so much that you can't win. You can't beat this media, bro. You can't win the league and the media. You got to focus on one. So unless Ange does that, he's going to be out. And that's my take on Spurs. What's yours?
I mean, you said what will make the media happy. This is what makes them happy. They love what is going on at certain clubs right now. Like, they live for this. And like you say, they're always trying to get a headline out of someone. But yeah, I mean, what's happening at Spurs goes way deeper than the manager. They've shown that with the amount of managers they've been through. That it runs deeper than that. It's the club. You know, they went out this summer and signed kids mainly. You know, good kids. Like Archie Gray is a really good player. He shouldn't be relied on at 18 years old to play out of position in a key part of the pitch. And you know, Bergval's a good player, but not quite ready, I think, for week in, week out yet. So, yeah, like, they got injuries at the moment, which definitely needs to be taken into account. But also the squad, it just shows that the squad depth isn't there. And for a club who are as wealthy as them and have the ambitions that they have, or at least their fans have, then yeah, you would have expected them to sort of strengthen a bit more in certain areas in the summer, because there are the pieces of a really good team there. You know, I think like Van der Ven, when he's fit and healthy, one of the best centre backs around in the Premier League. Like, that pace he's got is such, you know, an asset at the back. Some of their other players are just sort of struggling for consistency as well. Like, you know, like Udogie and Porro, there's good players in there, but they're not really consistent. Like, Maddison's shown that he can tear it up in this league. Solanke as well. He's sort of gone through streaks at Spurs since he's been there, where he'll score for 2 or 3 games, and then he'll go quiet again. Son, you know, is starting to catch up with him. Maybe, I don't know. I think Kulusevski's a really good player. Like, they've got pieces there, like Sarr and Bissouma as well in that middle, and Bentancur. But yeah, I don't know where this current Spurs squad, I don't know where their realistic level is And like I say, that middle of the Premier League's just got really competitive, especially when you've got teams playing above themselves in terms of maybe their wage bill, like Bournemouth, like Fulham, Forest. These are guys who, it's not like you have a sort of top four that are always set now, and then four teams below them that are always set, and then everyone else below that shit. Like it's so competitive now. There are some really good teams. And so,
Fans don't
Spurs
care about the competitiveness. They're like, we're Spurs. No. We should be higher up the table.
Yeah. And if you want to be high at the table, like you're not going to get given that these days. You got to go out there and earn it. And if your squad's not got the depth to cope with a few injuries, then you're going to suffer. And they're suffering right now. And I thought in this game as well, when they went 1-0 down, obviously that brought a smile to my face. And then as soon as they got one back, I was like, oh, they're turning this around. I even messaged one of my friends and said, like, oh, you're going to win this 3-1 now. And then they went 2-1 up, and I was like, see, and then all of a sudden I see that go back to 2-2 late in the game with that Strand Larsen goal. And I was like, oh, hello, this is a pleasant surprise for me. I'm seeing Wolves get back into this. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what it takes to fix it. I like Ange. I think he's a good manager. He just needs better players to be a success there, I think, because his style of play can work, but it needs better recruitment from Spurs or more patience for young players to develop. But
yeah, I feel like sorry, go ahead.
No, I was about to say that's why they are where they are.
Yeah, I agree with everything you say, and I just feel like the new players that they bought are young, but the times I've seen them have showed a lot of promise, and they probably need one more season to like really help this team. But I don't think the fans or the media are gonna give Ange that one more season. And then depending on the coach you get, he might change the system completely. And that might not be what Spurs need, is a change of system. They just need those players to be one season more mature to help Ange out as much as he needs. So they can be more rotation, some rest. It's a very exhausting system to play, and they need the depth to play it to make it more effective, because I do rate all those names that you just mentioned of those young players. And they do need to get their injured players back, and then next season rotate all the players so that there's less injuries and that they can play at their maximum ability. So, yeah, that's my idea for Spurs on that.
Now, I mean, if I'm honest, I hope someone comes and takes Van der Ven off them. And, let's get these good players out of Tottenham.
Hilarious. Brentford, they're 12th. You know what? This is where Brentford should be. And this is good for them. They got 24 points. Shit, they're above United, and they got 7 wins, 8 losses, 3 draws, and 1 win in their last 5, 3 losses, and 1 draw. And this is what Brentford does. I don't think any Brentford fan is unhappy. They're not in the relegation area. They lost their leading scorer. Their players put in an effort every game. It never looks like they don't believe in themselves. They have a system that works. And it'll be interesting if Brentford tried to spend more money. I mean, they do spend money, but it's not like on high-priced players. But it'll be interesting to see where they would be if they increase their spending a little bit more. But they're 12th, and this guy's job is secure, and even teams higher up the table might want him. Like he could be Tottenham's next new coach. You know what I mean? He could be, if you look up the table, yeah, why not? Trying to see, yeah, people like, is it like Thomas Frank? So good for Brentford being 12th, even though they drew versus Brighton Hove, and that's a good draw. Brighton Hove on the road during the holiday season. Good for Brentford. How are you feeling about Brentford?
Yeah, just a solid, well-run club like that. Include them in that sort of group of teams I say that are just solid in the middle of the table that can take points off you if you're not on your game against them. They're just a team that again they've recruited well over the years. Players like Wissa and Mbumo, they pick them up for fairly good prices, and they're turning out to be sort of really accomplished Premier League players. And even some of the players they've added in who took a little while to settle are now shining, like Damsgaard, the Danish midfielder. Like, he's looked really good these last few weeks. Schade, the German forward, had like a real sort of hot streak for a little bit as well. And they're just a solid team. They're a menace on set pieces as well. They really take them seriously. So yeah, just a good solid team. And like you say, I think they're about where they should be. They could be the sort of team who could end up dropping down a couple of places or could go up 3 or 4 places. It's that, like I say, it's that real dogfight in the middle of the table.
Yeah, and the next is West Ham. They're 13th, and
I don't know how
exactly. Like, when did this happen? And they're still having bad results. So like, it makes me want to count each point individually and see if this shit is accurate, because how is West Ham 13th, like, in the table above United? Like, 2 days ago, this coach was about to be fired. And after the last result against Liverpool, they played like, but they haven't lost in their last, they only lost once in their last 5 games. So they were on a good streak, which is good for West Ham. Like, they had 2 wins, 2 draws, and then they end up playing Liverpool and got shelled. So I guess this is a good run for them. Like we said, their next game is Man City. And you know what? They could do something to Man City. Everybody's touching City. So why not them? Maybe, let me see who are the teams that so they beat Southampton. They drew with Brighton Hove. They drew with West Ham. And they beat Wolves. So I feel like Man City will beat them, and Man City will go on a 2-game streak, and then West Ham will be further down in the table where most of their play has represented that they should be this season. But yeah, Lopetegui, his head been on the chopping block since game 1 to 19. So I don't even know how he's 13th. But yeah, West Ham, they're higher, surprisingly, than I thought they were.
Yeah, like I say, it's a mystery. And yeah, I mean, I watched them on Boxing Day. I watched Southampton play them, and they came away with a 1-0 win, but we kind of we messed up and gave away a stupid corner which we didn't need to, and then they scored off the second phase from that. But we were carving them open at will in that game. We were flinging crosses into the box, and Paul Onuachu was just lacking a bit of sharpness. And they looked really open against us. And against a good team in Liverpool, a few days later, you saw what that openness does. Like, they just got carved up, and we should have done that to them if we had some more quality. So yeah, like I say, it's mystifying how they are where they are, because they're just to me, a bad football team. They play without any real intensity. It's just, there's some players in there that I really like, though. I think having Kudus back from his suspension it's given them something. And I think Jarrod Bowen is a really good player. If they do manage to keep out of the trouble below them, it'll be because of those two. Because there's a lot of just nothing in that team. Mavropanos at the back, I think, is a terrible player. Some of the players like they had in the midfield against us, like Rodriguez. One player who I was impressed with against us, though, who changed it in the second half, they brought on Alvarez, the Mexican midfielder who sometimes starts for them. They brought him on at half time against us, and it helped them lock that midfield down a little bit more. We created less chances second half than we did first half, but yeah, it was. I mean, Fulkrug against us, he got the assist for Bowen's goal with like a little flick on, but other than that, he did nothing. I didn't even know he was playing most of the game.
He hasn't played that much. He's been injured a lot.
He's played some games though, and he's just not really looked anything like the player he was at Dortmund. But at Dortmund he was in his home country playing in a system that suited him a lot of the time, and at West Ham he's not been that. But they're going to need him to step up now, because I don't know how long Antonio is going to be out for.
Yeah.
With his stuff going on. So yeah, who knows? But
yeah, because that Ferrari is going to be out for a minute. So I don't know if that reflects how bad Antonio was injured, because the Ferrari was pretty. Yes, it looked totaled. But hopefully,
I mean, at the end of the day, I
Antonio.
think coming out of it with his life was lucky enough. Let
Yeah,
alone whether he manages to come back and play football. I think he's blessed to have able to been alive after that.
yeah. Speaking of bad teams, Man United, 14th, 22 points. We've been stuck on 22 points for 3 games, bro. And our last one was against Man City. What were you gonna say?
Just dropping on staying on those points, but other
Yeah,
teams adding to theirs.
yeah. Like when we got these 22 points, we could have been in the top 6 if we just got something against Bournemouth. I knew Bournemouth was going to be tough, but I was like, at least we're home. And like I said, we didn't play that bad, but the score and the times the goals came in, just I was like, they're gonna. And that's the thing, like it's results like that and how the fans take them that led to like Xerxes getting booed today. And I know Xerxes wasn't at it. I would never say he was. And it's like, what's going on with this team where, system or not, our desire levels, our intensity levels are so down. Now, I kind of understand it today. We had no Ugarte, no Bruno Fernandes. Like, Newcastle strolled into town at the right time. We had these suspensions, and like Ericsson and Casemiro at their age in a midfield versus, like you just mentioned, Tonali and the rest of what Newcastle had. I was like, man. But there was a game where Casemiro and Ericsson did have a good game, surprisingly, where they started together. I can't remember that game, so maybe that's what Ruben was counting on. But yeah, it didn't work today, and we give away the ball a lot. We're terrible in tight spaces or in half spaces. Like Ahmad didn't do anything magical today, like score a goal or have an assist, but I still think he had a really good game. I don't want that. I don't want him having to score or have an assist to be like the standard. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I liked what he did in this game. And this guy who's such a skillful player, has this innate ability of how to press and when to press and when to steal the ball. And he did that several times today. And it's like, hey, bro, just teach it to the other players on the team. Like, have a clinic where you show them why you do what you do when you do it, so that everybody else can add this to the game, because that's what we need. Like, Ugarte was definitely missed today. He's a good ball winner. And not only is he a good ball winner, he's a good simple passer. He helps us maintain the ball, so we were missing that today. And his youth and his legs, he's definitely one of our good buys in the preseason window. But yeah, we're struggling. The confidence ain't there. And then Maguire will play bad for some of the game and then realize he's playing bad and then play good. So, like, there was, I don't know, those crosses that Newcastle put in that ended up in goals when we had people in the back, it's frustrating. It's not like we were carved open. They beat us like old football style. They turned like open play into set piece play. They're like, we just can't defend crosses, period. And whether it's from a set piece or in open play. They're like, just cross on them. They'll just act like it's a set piece. Then they tried to Olympico us like several times, and thank God nothing went in again. But they've definitely been watching us get Olympicoed by Spurs and by who else did it to us? It might have been
Wolves.
Cunha. Yeah, Cunha. So that's just a disaster. It didn't work though, but I'm just trying to think. I'm not gonna be. Ten Hag made some subs early. He took Xerxes off, and that immediately changed the game. And we went on the offensive, and we won more balls and more duels, applied more pressure. And it's like, why couldn't you do that at the beginning of the game? Why is this like we're already 2 down, guys? So we could do this. Another frustrating thing was the end of the Wolves game when we had 10 men. Like, we pressed with 10 men successfully. So where is that energy when we had 11? I also blame that referee in that game for his decision on handing out cards. For some of the things that he gave us cards for, he didn't give Wolves players cards equally. And those cards affected us in this game today because we had players that weren't available. But yeah, man, like, I don't know if the players are tentative because they're trying to hold their place in the system and they're paying more attention to where they're supposed to be as opposed to how effective they're supposed to be without the ball. I don't know if it's a combination of that, but they kind of were tentative under Ten Hag sometimes and didn't display the intensity required to play any system. And they lacked intensity under Ragnick and under Ali on a consistent basis when we needed. So we need some donkey players, some players that will just go for it. And I keep screaming for Collier. And then I'm like, why don't you put him in? But then I realize Amorim has probably never seen Collier train because he keeps mentioning that with a game every 3 days.
4 training sessions, yeah.
Yeah, there's only been 4 actual training sessions. So I don't think he's ever seen Collier press and win duels and challenge for the ball. And that's what we needed today instead of both Eriksson and Casemiro. We needed a Collier. But how can Collier like prove himself to this coach? They've been on the same team for a month, but they actually never really met. Like, how can Collier get to introduce Amorim to his game and show him, like, oh, hey, when Ugata's not there, or we can both do it together, we can win midfield battles for you. You know? So I hope at some point Amorim gets introduced to Collier. But we're 14th, man. We got 6 wins, 4 draws, and 9 losses. It's terrible. We have 21 goals. We have 26 goals against us. Our goal difference is -5. And this is not an accidental 14th. I feel like we're the only team in the league that doesn't play with intensity. Like, Everton plays with intensity, win or lose, most of the time.
Us.
Yeah. But even Southampton games, I was trying to think, like, what team out here ain't playing with intensity? Like, West Ham is the only one that kind of matches our lack of intensity. Which is a crime in the Premier League. Having no intensity is a crime, and we are committing that week after week. What's your Man United take?
I mean, yeah, it was just like I finished a spot earlier, and like me and my buddy, we were on the first half of the show, and we were like, right, let's go down the road to the pub and catch the game. And we walked in, and you guys were already 1-0 down. It was like, oh shit, this is not going well. And because when was that first goal? 4 minutes, wasn't it? We got there about 10 minutes into the game. We got there about 10 minutes into the game, and just like you say, just the energy levels were different. You know, Newcastle were just playing with an intensity that you guys just couldn't cope with, and you had like little flashes where it looked like you might be able to create a chance, and some of the play in the final third from you guys was criminal. Like that one where the ball got slid to Casemiro and he decides to take a touch and slot that finish.
Yeah, you're Casemiro.
Low and hard. You ain't some extravagant number 10. just just make the keeper work. Like do something. Yeah, it was just bad. And yeah, some of your key players just weren't quite on it in terms of that output in the attacking third, like Ahmad, he just wasn't quite there. And yeah, I felt for Xerxes as well, because I don't think any player really deserves that treatment from fans. And it's a brutal thing getting subbed first half. That's a brutal thing to go through.
Somebody had to go.
You're doing it in front of 80,000 people, whatever, live national television. It's a horrible thing to go through. And Amorim obviously felt like he needed to do it. And I don't think Xerxes is capable of playing in that role as one of the 2 10s. But he's also not really the 9 for this system either. So it begs a question like, what's his future going to hold? Is he going to be one who goes in January? There was talk of Juventus being like a sort of loan option or something. So he might be one who might go out, because that's the other thing at the moment is like right now there's so many square pegs in round holes, because Amorim's trying to bed this system in, and obviously he's doing it for the ones who are going to stay around, but I think there's some who clearly aren't going to stay around, and they're just having to try and play a role right now. But that balance just looked off with like Ahmad and Xerxes as 2 10s. I don't think either of them are 10s. Xerxes maybe, but he's not mobile enough to do it with the intensity that Amorim needs. And Ahmad, I think it'd be interesting to see where he settles in this Amorim team, because I think Ahmad's best position is a right winger, where he can get the ball cut in on his left. I don't think he's a right wing back. He can play right wing back, but I don't think he's a right wing back. But I also don't think he's a 10, because I think he gets lost a little bit in the middle of the pitch. He'll work hard. Yeah. He'll do certain things, but I think he's best off receiving the ball, running at a fullback.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's, like I say, there's just so many people who are looking out of sorts in this system right now. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much movement there is there in January, or if it's all going to come in the summer. And then, how does it look once Amorim's had a chance to have people for this system? I think you've got people that suit the system who aren't playing right now. Like I think Luke Shaw is built for that left wing back role, but I don't know if you can ever count on him again to play and be healthy regularly. So you need to go out and buy someone there. Yeah, I mean,
we're looking at Nuno Mendes at PSG, but they're gonna want a hostage price for him.
Yeah, and then I think who do you put in those 2 10 roles? Who are the best players for those? And yeah, a lot of questions to be answered there, but it's just right now I think you're just trying to get through. I think the results could be improved in the short term if maybe a different system was used and that some of the players are put into their more preferred positions, but you're losing any learning that the players who are going to stick around might get from playing Amorim's system. So it's a real like catch-22 kind of thing right now, because some of the players just don't look like they'll ever get that system.
And Amorim said, what if I lose after changing? Then I lose.
You're done. Yeah.
Yeah. And I lose the way I didn't want to play, so it's like, I
kind of feel like that's what happened to Ten Hag as well. Like he came in with like this Ajax philosophy, and that got pretty much ripped up.
I feel like it got ripped up, and he said, all right, I'm going to do it in the second season. But then the injuries hurt the hell out of him. And then he just couldn't do it. And yeah. And then there's a certain players he should have just used earlier on. Like the Moroccan player that's in Turkey now, and Amrabat and Ahmad. It's just like play him earlier.
Yeah, and there's so many years of bad recruitment to try and undo as well, including this summer as well, because those players are bought for Ten Hag and Ten Hag's system. whatever that system was. And you've had Ashworth leave, and then you just got to try and figure out what type of club, what type of team this is going to be, and then buy players for that.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with this not being a great season. I just don't know if the fans are. You see them booing Xerxes already. It's like we would never accept mediocrity, even if that's what we're at. But I don't think they're booing mediocrity. It's lack of effort. Like I would in the Wolves game, especially in the first half. Like there were a lot of midfield battles that we won and duels, and even if we gave the ball away afterwards, like I loved seeing the fight. But I don't know if the fans would give you credit for that, and I think they should. That's what they should encourage. Like the players know that won't be good enough, so it's like why even do it?
Yeah,
but like you got to give them credit for something, which is a vital part of the game in order to get what you want them to give you, which is a win. So let's go to Crystal Palace at 15th. They've earned this spot. They started this season mad slow. They had some bad luck in some games, like in the first game of the season, they had a goal taken away, late whistle. They should have at least 6 more points on what they got now, but they've kind of gotten it together recently, and they've only had 1 loss in their last 5. It's been 2 draws, 2 wins, and so this coach who came in at the end of last season and kind of turned Crystal Palace around, they've given him a chance, and he's they sold someone. I forgot who it was. So Olise, yeah, that's a big. And he was injured last season, and then when he came back last season, they started to ascend and show who they really were. And then they're like, all right, let's sell him. And and they've fought off the sale of other players, but this is where they are, 15th on 20 points. What do you feel about Crystal Palace?
Yeah, I think that position is maybe a little bit false for them in terms of they started the season really badly. Like they were right down the bottom. It took them ages just to get a win, and then eventually they got it, and now they've been on some okay form. They still have some dips, like they got battered by Arsenal in that 5-1 game recently. But I watched the game against us, and they looked good. They like Eze would always get them out of a tight spot in certain games because he's just got some quality that is rare. Like he's such a good finisher from around the box. Right. Mateta was just bullying our defenders all game.
Yeah, real forward, that guy. Real forward. Yeah.
We talk about intensity, and Palace played with that. That was why they beat us, because they did everything quicker and more aggressively. They wanted to get to those second balls. When they got the ball, they attacked us quickly. They didn't give us chances to get set or anything, and they were just, everything about their level of intensity was higher than ours, and that's why they got the win. And again, Glasner's got a specific system. He uses that 3-4-3 similarly, and I think when he has a chance to get a couple more players in for that, they'll look more solid. But even so, having like Chalobah played well at the back for them as well. Munoz looks really good for them too. They've got a good team. Like, they're nice balance to them.
Yeah, let's slide down to Everton. I agree with everything you're saying on that. Crystal Palace, Everton, they're 16th, and they're 2 points above the relegation zone. And they've just been fighting hard all year. Did Everton sell somebody important to them? I feel like at this season, before the season started,
they kept hold of Branthwaite, which was the
right. He's been injured a lot, so he hasn't been there. And but they've only lost one of their last 5 games, and that's to Forest, who's at second in the table. And I've read off
Amadou Onana was the main one they lost.
Yeah,
to Villa.
And that's the thing. Like, the more they survive, the more they sell. Like they might not go down this season, but how can they survive next season if they, you're Southampton, you've done this before, and Everton is in financial trouble. They have new owners now, and ever since actually they got the new owners, and it was official. I think that's when they got their first win, like in early December, and then they've had 3 draws after that, and then now, I guess the new owner bounce ran out today against Nottingham Forest, but they have to keep the results similar to what it has been recently before today in order for them to like play in the Premiership in their new stadium this new season coming up. Or I don't know when that stadium is going to be ready. I don't know how much longer. I don't know if it's next season or the season after. But I don't blame Sean Dyche for where they are. And I feel like Everton fans should show him more love. Like, the club hasn't been run great. They spent a lot of money. They've been in debt. They have a lot of issues before Sean Dyche. That's why Sean Dyche was brought in. He saved them even when they were almost relegated and they had points taken away from them. Like, so for 2 seasons in a row, he saved them, and they're selling players. And that's not his fault. It's because of shit that happened before. So I know it ain't great, but I feel like he's your best case scenario. To shit on your best case scenario, good luck. Because if he leaves, I'd be impressed if somebody comes in and does a better job. What's your thoughts on Everton?
I think Sean Dyche should be fired.
Oh, I know why.
Purely for being the only team to lose to Southampton this season. If you lost to us, you're a disgrace. You need to go. No. No, in all seriousness, though, like I think they're a weird one, Everton, because like they'll go and like grind out draws against some of the best teams around. Like they drew 0-0 with Arsenal, 0-0 with Chelsea. They got a 1-1 away to City, and then they'll lose 2-0 at home to Forest, who maybe they should have got something against, or 4-0 away to you guys. Like they got pounded there. I'm just looking at their results now. It's like 0-0 at home to Brentford, 0-0 away to West Ham. It's just. Yeah, they got to try and pick, because a lot of their points came towards the start of the season.
I think their results.
They started badly. They came sort of a little bit later on. Like they beat Everton in October. They beat Palace end of September. They had that little run there, but yeah, they started terribly. They're almost like this team where like they can like grinding out a draw against one of the top teams is like their speciality, and sometimes getting points against teams that they should get more against is their downfall. They've turned it on occasionally. Like I say, they smashed Wolves before this run of draws against the big teams. That was before the loss to Forest. So I think what they're doing is enough to keep them out of the trouble below them. But I think that's only because the teams below them are really bad in most cases.
Wolverhampton Wanderers, and I'm wondering if this new manager, how good is he? He hasn't lost yet. 2 wins and a draw. And is this a bounce, or is this who he is? Now, attacking wise, even under Gary O'Neill, I felt like this is not an area of lacking, even though they have a minus goal difference of 11. It's just defensively. So if this guy could get his team to be more compact and attack and minimize the risk at the back, but still do what they're doing to get forward, that you can get more points than this team has now. And so far, that's kind of what he's been doing. They tied against Spurs at Tottenham. Their players are brave. They play with intensity. They want to win. Even under Gary O'Neill, they wanted to win. So I don't think he lost the locker room. Maybe towards the end a little bit he did. But I feel like they gave him effort. They gave a lot of effort against us. So I feel like Wolves will be fine because they have some real, like Aït-Nouri, what's his name? What's the
Cunha?
Cunha, and there's somebody else on their team. And Semedo has good pedigree too. He's from Barcelona, and so they should be fine. And they got Forest coming up next too.
Yeah, I mean, if the manager can maintain what he's got going on, I think he's a better fit there though, just because of the makeup of the squad. Like, there's so many Brazilians and Portuguese players in that squad. Like, having a Portuguese manager is going to help. And I think for them, it's just keeping. If they can keep this team together, I think they'll probably have enough. But will they have to look over their shoulders for Ipswich? I don't know, and Leicester, because. Yeah, I mean, we're the only foregone conclusion, in my opinion, relegation right now. But, you know, Cunha's going to have this ban come through. I don't know how many games that's going to be, because you can't do what he did. Yeah, I mean, you know, they're kind of lucky that he didn't get banned.
How did he
get
to play against us?
Because he got charged, but there's a period where the club can appeal if they want to, which I don't think they have. But there's a period where it's sort of that has to expire first, and then he'll be banned. And it all slows down over Christmas for some reason. People not working, I guess. But I don't even know.
People in the ban office were on vacation?
Must be, because I don't know, because that one was open and shut to me. There's a video of him elbowing a guy in the head and then snatching the glasses off his face. Like, that's, you know, it's an open and shut case. There should be minimum 3-game ban, potentially more for that. You know, Kudus got more for slapping 3 people. So he could be on that level. And if they lose him, that's a big, big blow to them. And I think there'll be clubs trying to buy him as well, either now or end of season. They'll be looking for end of season, I'm guessing, because they don't want to let probably their best asset go. And same with Aït-Nouri as well. I think there's clubs who could be looking at him, like United could do worse than look at him for sure. He's a really good player. So yeah, if they can keep it all together, I think they should just about have enough. But I still maintain that it's the current bottom 4. It'll be 3 from that 4, us plus 2 more.
Right. I like Ipswich though. Like I was saying, they're 18th, but they seem to fight every game, you know. And they get blown out once in a while, but they lose. They place, you know. I've seen them lose close games against top teams, you know. So I just never seen them not. For the most part, they put in a shift and they don't let the loss. They have good mentality. The losses don't affect them. They don't be like, oh, well, shit, we're at the bottom. Like today, they pull that win out, and they deserve that win today because they've been in games like that and lost it. And today, they got the win. I like watching them play. I think Karen McKenna is a good coach. And after this, like if some team higher up in the table is smart. Even Spurs, he'd be great at Spurs, you know?
He's got Spurs connection. He's an academy coach there.
Yeah, so shit. He's got a United connection. I don't think United's going to fire their coach. Like, we know we can't fire our coach. We know it ain't him. Like, you know, but yeah, just back on Ipswich, like, I feel like they may survive. They might, because depending on when that suspension kicks in for Wolves, that's a big blow to Wolves. And if Ipswich could get their shit together during that period, they could leap over Wolves and then try to stay above them. And then, you know, and Leicester, I just don't think. Just I'll let you talk about Ipswich before I go to Leicester.
Yeah, I mean, Ipswich, it's a weird one because they have lost a lot of games still. You know, they've only won 3 and they're on minus 15 goal difference. I think they're deceptive. They do work hard and they've got a good structure. But some teams have rolled them over and they make mistakes at the back. The goalkeeper has given away so many goals this season with his distribution, Muric. So he's not been up to it. But yeah, if they've got any hope of staying up, it rests with Delap and Hutchinson. You know, they both got goals tonight, and not just saying because of that, but they've been their 2 sort of brightest attacking sparks this season. Delap should be a Premier League player, whatever happens to Ipswich at the end of the season. You know, I think it's good to have another English striker coming through as well. because he'll be around for a while now, and I think he's a menace because he's another one who's like, he's quick, he's strong, he can hold the ball up, he can run in behind, and he can finish crucially. So yeah, he'll be key to their hopes.
You mentioning about the lapse pace, because I watched the highlights of this game and I was like, and I don't know if you noticed that most of the teams that I did praise were talking about the wheels that they got when I was talking about Forest and how much they run. And I feel like United overall, we don't got no pace, bro. We might have it going forward a little bit with Rashford, but he's mentally not there. And we might have it a little bit with Højlund, but he's an unfinished, unpolished product. But in the middle of the pitch, not a pace. Like the pass has to be perfect. Even when Diallo gets ahead of somebody, it's just with bravery and precision. Like he can be caught. He's just such a good baller and a genius with it that like that's what makes him effective. But yeah, thinking about Ipswich and their pace and how they use it, it's, and that's how they got out the championship. Precision and pace. But let's go back to Leicester. They're 19th. And, they got promoted. They lost the coach that got them promoted to Chelsea. And they lost probably one of their best players and, in assists and goals. Shrewsbury Hall, he went with Maresca to Chelsea. I wish Chelsea hadn't bought him from Maresca because Chelsea don't need him and they don't really use him. And he'd be getting playing time at Leicester, and Leicester need him and would use him, and it'd be a little higher up the table, maybe more. He has Premier League experience because he played with Leicester in the Premier League before. So I think that's a big loss for them. And I just don't think that they have much when you talk about teams that ain't got no intensity. I think they're right up there with United on that. So them being 19th is no surprise to me. And I feel bad because Ruud is their coach now, but he just walked into a situation where their best player gets intensity from 3 Red Bulls and a candy bar before each game. So what do you think
Vardy
about
special?
This? Yeah, exactly.
They need to get all that. They need to get all their players doing that, I think. Because like they can't rely on Vardy for goals to stay up because the man's 38 or whatever. I don't know. Almost as old as me, so that's not good. And yeah, they're just too leaky at the back for me to stay up.
Yeah,
they got some good players in there. Like I like Mavididi as well. But yeah, for me, they're not good enough to stay up. I think they'll go down unless they can put a run together out of nowhere. So I think they'll be my choice at the moment for staying where they are, second bottom. Right. I mean, we'll be bottom no matter what. But yeah, just a tough one for Ruud because he had a little bit of a bounce when he came in, and they showed in spells like we were talking earlier when I was talking about City in the game against them at the weekend. They had spells where they put them under some pressure, but they just weren't good enough to capitalize, and they were just too open at the back at times. Yeah,
they just lost 4 in a row.
Yeah, getting smashed by Wolves was, I think, the result that told me what I needed to know.
Yeah, smashed by Newcastle, well. Smashed by Wolves. They tied with, is that Forest? Which is, what is that? No, they got beat by Forest. Is that Forest? I think that's Forest. And yeah, I mean, my Man City's beating you, Like Man City had no right losing that game. So yeah. That's how bad Leicester are. Man City beat them. So that's why they're 19th. And your team, Southampton, you want to go first on this? It's your team. They're 20th.
I mean, I went to the game.
6 points.
I went to the game against West Ham. on Boxing Day, and then I watched the entire game against Palace yesterday. And there's some positive changes that new managers brought in. Like, he's made us slightly more direct, a little bit more intense. He's starting Paul Onuachu, which I like, because I think he'll score goals eventually, but he's just like, he's barely played. So he got chances against West Ham, but he couldn't really take them because I think he was lacking a bit of sharpness. So I hope he persists with him. And I don't think this new manager is going to accept a lot of the stuff that's been going on. Like he said, like the second goal against Palace, he's like, unacceptable, shouldn't be happening. And he's saying that we're not aggressive enough on second balls. The press, he wants to press and be aggressive, but it's not there yet. But he's another one where he came in and we've had barely any chance to actually work on the training ground. So again, I think hopefully once the schedule slows down a little bit, he can get into the players and get some good work going on. I think a couple of loans will probably get cancelled. Like, we got Maxwell Cornet on loan from West Ham. He'll be going back. He's done nothing. So yeah, he'll reshuffle it up a bit. And yeah, I think we just needed to change something. And it's already looking a bit more positive. But we're still not learning, because the West Ham goal was second phase off a corner. Palace's first goal was a corner. The second goal was second phase off a corner. So we just need to sort certain things out. But all I want to see is just some effort the second half of the season. For some players, that motivation might come from playing for a move in the summer, because I can't imagine some of them will stay, and some of them, I think, just play for some pride, man. Like, don't like, some of these players might not get a chance in the Premier League again. It's like, do you want your time in the Premier League to be remembered for this? Or do you want to actually put up a fight and say, we turned it around, wasn't good enough in the end, but we went down with a fight? So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to muster up that energy to fight now when you only got 6 points, So if they do, hats off to them. But it's like to you, it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to get relegated. And to them, they know that. So, and they're in it, it's tough. But if you saw a fight from them today, I mean, they definitely needed to change their manager, and they did that. And hopefully his new energy can kind of trick them into giving him something, like more than they would have if everything had just remained the same. And maybe a win here and a win there might start a spark. So it's the best you could do right now. But yeah, Southampton is 20th for a reason.
We need 2 wins to avoid the lowest points record. The lowest points record's 11.
That should be your inspiration.
Yeah, don't be the worst ever.
Yeah, put that on the bulletin board. Yeah.
Don't be the worst.
Yeah, don't be the worst. Imagine the last day of the season, they get 12 points and they start celebrating. On the
pitch invasion.
Pitch invasion. Yeah, we did it. Got relegated with 12 points instead of 11. Yeah. Let's talk Sir Gareth Southgate.
Yeah.
So when did they knight him?
It got announced today. He hasn't been knighted yet. It just got
Okay.
announced that he's going to be. It'll be sometime in the new year.
Do you think he deserves it? I DM'd it to you.
I think so. He was in the role for quite a while, and I think he sort of transformed the atmosphere around the team, and he was our best performing England manager since Alf Ramsey, who won the World Cup. So, yeah, I mean, people get knighted for stuff outside football for less. People have been knighted in football for less. Like, I love Bobby Robson, but he only got England to a semi-final of a World Cup. So, yeah, I mean, Southgate, he's got us to the final of the Euros twice, and taken us deep into a World Cup as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's deserved. He improved he took us on some runs which really captured the nation. I didn't always agree with his selection, didn't always agree with his style of play, but you can't argue with the results that he got for, getting us to places we'd never been before, not been in a long, long time.
And what's the vibe in England? Do everybody agree, or some people like, nah? Because there's a lot of fans angry during the Euros, even with the games that we won. So
yeah,
it's like,
I think that was sort of the emotion around it at the time. I think now most people are happy for him. I haven't seen really much backlash. There'll be some people out there, but I mean, any piece of news ever, if you look in the Twitter comments, you'll see someone disagreeing with it.
right. What are they gonna do with the German coach, whose name escapes me right now? If he wins the World Cup, like, what are they going to make him a king?
I don't know if they can. I don't know if you can become a sir if you're not actually British. So,
right.
So he might struggle there. But
Make him a lord or something.
I mean, if he wins us the World Cup, I'd say give him whatever he wants.
Yeah, Tuchel, Lord Tuchel. Get used to it.
Yeah, he can be whatever he wants if he gets us there.
Because I don't know, I just felt like the standard before I knew more from talking to you was you have to win the thing. But if Brian Robson got it. But they might have given Bobby Robson that because of just his playing career. But I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this. I love what he did he did provide like some exciting times before everybody became critical of him. He surprised us with the progress of the team. He turned the press not against England players, but in favor of them.
To be knighted just for that. Getting the press on side is probably a bigger achievement than winning a trophy.
Yeah, winning the press. He won the press World Cup. Yeah, and he had us deep in tournaments, even though the draws were favorable. But I've seen good teams get knocked out at certain stages of the tournament that were English. So to get us to finals, maybe, but he got it. So good for him. I did not want this to end for him where he would be forgotten for what he did do. So if this is the way that he's remembered because of this, Sir Gareth, then fine. I'm fine with it. What's going down on fantasy wise?
Oof. I mean, I took some gambles this week. I've been doing okay. I went captain Salah, and obviously he repaid me this week. So that was all good. My biggest gamble was I saw the Duran suspension for Villa after that red card against Newcastle, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to put Watkins back in.
Yes.
And he's repaid me tonight as well with a goal and an assist.
Yeah.
And he got some bonus points as well, so that's all good. I got lucky as well though, because I put in my defense I had Murillo for Forest, but he's injured, so he didn't play. And the first defender on my bench is Lewis Hall for Newcastle. And he got a clean sheet and an assist and bonus points. So he's coming in for my team with 12 points.
You're welcome, Lee.
So yeah, thank you, United. So that's given me a little boost. So including his 12 points to come in, I'm going to be on 71 for this week. Martin's on 82 for this week because he played his bench boost. But I've still got Gabriel and Martinelli and Wissa to play in the Arsenal-Brentford game. So I'm going to pick up some points there. Right. Martin's only got Mbumo. He's his only player. So I've got 3 players left to play. Martin's got 1. So I'm hoping that difference will help me catch up. But at the top of the league, as we were, Ahmad Zekri, number 1, Brian Avina, number 2, Joey Duda, number 3. No change at the top.
All right, Fantasy Leaguers. Well, yeah, man, this is the last show for the year. Happy New Year, everybody. I guess there's going to be football January 1st. How many? I don't like how they just
only one game January 1st, which is that's the Arsenal Brentford game, and then then that counts as part of the current game week. And then the next one starts on Saturday the 4th. We've got Brentford at home. I'm gonna be at that game.
Yeah, and we got Liverpool at Anfield. So
on the Sunday, yeah.
Damn.
My condolences.
Hey man. Well, I guess we're gonna be stuck on 22. We're gonna start the year the way we ended it. Stuck on 22. Because I don't see a chance in a cat's hell with 9 lives. How are we gonna get off that? Yeah. But everybody else, Happy New Year. We love you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you, Lee. Anything you want to throw in there?
No, just, I hope all your football dreams come true in 2025, everyone, unless you're a Spurs fan.
Hilarious. All right, y'all. 1.